Hi, Alan Stratton from Woodturning. At the AAW symposium in Raleigh, North Carolina this past summer, there were a lot of very interesting demonstrations, one of which was Max Brosi from Ireland. And in this case, he did what he called a whalebone form. If you look at it correctly, it looks like the vertebrae of a large whale. It is a multi-axis form and a little bit of carving. I found it a very interesting one to think about and to try and do, so I just had to come home and do it out of some fresh green pear. So let's turn this whalebone form out of green pear. This wood is decorative pear from my neighbor's tree that came down in a recent storm. At that time, I rough turned this billet and waxed it. Now it is mounted using the original centers. I need to clean off the wax and cut a mounting tenon. My next task is to rough turn a sphere, which you've seen me do many times now. Who needs a jig to do this? For the octagon method, I keep a note in my phone that the distance on a cylinder from the end to a corner is 0.293 times the diameter, and that the width of a side is 0.414 times the diameter. This is much less expensive than a jig. I start by measuring the diameter. With the calculations complete, I write the measures on the wood. Then clean up one end and turn the spigot down to a diameter equal to a side. With this reference point established, I can mark out the corners on the surface of the cylinder. Turn down the bottom of the cylinder similar to the tailstock end. Lay out the corners of the octagon and cut from corner down to the diameter on the end. I could have also just marked the top side. Voila! An octagon. Then divide the sides in half, then half again. Then remove the corners and proceed to round off the sphere. I don't need to do the next phase with cup centers to perfect the sphere. This is enough for this project. Now I can index the sphere using the marks on the chuck at 30 degrees or 12 segments around the sphere. These will come in handy later. For now, I can part off the wood from the base and get rid of the chuck. I've rotated the sphere 90 degrees into a new axis and mounted it between centers. I used opposing index marks where they intersected the equator. Now to cut a groove using a bowl gouge. This wet wood turns nicely. Next, the mounting axis is shifted again for an intersecting groove. I take a little time to mark the edges of the groove to match the first groove, then cut the groove. Now I'm shifting the axis yet one more time. The mount point is halfway between the grooves on the widest section remaining. It is time to measure my drill chuck and my four-jaw chuck. I want a hole that my drill chuck can fit into so that the hole can go deeper than the drill length. I need my four-jaw chuck set for that hole size plus 2 wall thicknesses. Then mark the side on the end of the wood and cut a tenon to this side. Now back to the chuck to mount this onto the new tenon. I take a moment to mark the sphere for future carving. Mostly this is to check to make sure that I'm doing this right before I go too far. Then proceed to hollow the sphere from this side. After hollowing, I'm cutting a groove for an expansion mortise inside the hollow. Then reverse mount the wood into that expansion mortise and start hollowing from the opposite end. Then mark up the rest of the sphere for future carving. Max did not do any carving in his demo, too much dust, so I'm on my own from this point. I'm starting carving with my right angle tool. This was a mistake because I could not cut deep enough inside the tight space. So I decided to drill out these small areas with a brad point drill bit. My previous carving attempt made this a mess. It would have been better to drill the original surface. Then back to the right angle tool with a coarse cutting wheel. Now I'm switching to a rasp wheel. I don't try to finish any one area. Instead, I work a little in many areas and come back to refine each area again and again and again. After all, it is easy to remove wood but impossible to put it back. Even this rasp on the right angle tool cannot get into these side vents. For more refinement, I start using this small power carving tool. This is a Ram Products icon carver. It has a small, lightweight power end. I can turn up the RPMs to over 40,000. A Dremel tool would be my fallback. Using the carbide rasp bits, I go over and over everything I can get to. This works much better for these smaller vents. Up to now, the wood has still been mounted to the chuck. Now I need to remove it and address the other end. Back to the right angle tool with the rasp bit. I can remove that mounting groove and refine the cavity. A wood clamp secures the wood. I do a lot of gyrations to get to as much wood as possible. Now back to the inline carver for further refinement. This time I'm paying attention to the corners to round them off and any area that feels too thick or seems to need further refinement. The carvers generate a lot of wood dust. Again, this is my attempt to reproduce Max Brosi's whalebone form. I think it came out fine. It is quite an exercise in multi-axis mounting and a lot of carving. He would bleach it and sandblast some of his. I will just hand sand it a little and bleach it to see how it turns out. Then spray it with rattle can lacquer. This has been a very interesting exercise. When I mimic a presentation that I've seen, I expand my skill set and get ideas for future projects. My whalebone form is a bit weird, but I like it. Please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe on my website, tell your friends, and send me your comments and questions. Every week I make a new wood turning video. Please wear your full face shield. For this project, dust protection is also nice. Until next week's video, this is Alan Stratton from As Wood Turns.